Hello, welcome to my little trip down road testing memory lane. Another Q&A video today. But before I start, I just wanted to say thank you to everybody who'd responded to the last video, the great sports bike debate part 2. Still a divisive subject, still a subject people feel really strongly about, one way or the other. So loads and loads of comments, so thank you very much to all of you, and also to the R6 user who kind of kicked that idea forward in the first place. So yeah, it's really interesting. I had a lot of fun making it and a lot of fun reading all your comments, so keep them coming in. Before I go on as well, I've been on my travels. I've been to nothing work related this time, more well, I've been using my new KTM 1390 Super Duke long termer, and I went to Matlock, Bath over the Easter weekend, and it was absolutely rammed as you'd expect. It's fantastic, basically just overrun with bikes. And thank you also to everyone who's come and said hello along the way. It's very much appreciated. Also, before I crack on with the first question, there's quite a lot of reoccurring questions and comments about two things. First of all is the Kawasaki ZH2. I've spoken a bit about Super Nakeds in previous videos, and I haven't mentioned the Kawasaki in that group of Super Nakeds, and nor do we include that bike in Super Nakeds tests anymore. I mean, Super Nakeds is just an easy way of describing a certain type of bike for us. It doesn't mean it's any better or worse than any other bike. So a Super Naked definition to us is basically a super bike with straight upright bars, I think, in a nutshell. You know, whether or not it's got a little bit of bodywork or not, like a 200, but that's basically it. The bike has to have super bike performance, so super bike weight, super bike power, super bike brakes, electronics, and all of those things. The Speed Triple fits into that category. The MT10 SP does. Just the Ducati Street Fighter, Aprilia 200, KTM Super Duke. So they're all Super Nakeds. The Kawasaki, you could argue, right, with so much power and that supercharged engine, it's a Super Naked, and it is in some respects, but the bottom line is it's far too heavy really to be kind of considered a super bike with straight bars. It's more of a, I suppose, a hyper naked, something like that. You know, it's a naked hyper bike really. It's a naked H2, bit softer, but a naked H2. You know, a bit like the B King was a naked Booster, that kind of thing. So for ZH2 fans, I'm not putting that bike down. It's just not in that super naked category when we talk about that bike. And the other thing that I get asked a lot about is regarding my crash helmets, specifically the Alpine Stars new road lid there, the R10 Supertech R10. It is an absolutely beautiful crash helmet, all carbon fibre, light, very well ventilated, really good vision out of it. And I'll be doing a review in MCN soon, but the honest truth is I don't get to wear it that much because I'm always riding bikes, obviously, but I'm generally riding bikes for pictures, and the black crash helmet doesn't look very good in pictures. So I'm going to be wearing this more on my long-term test bike this year, my KTM Super Duke. Wasn't the sort of lid I could really have worn on my Z1000 SX. What was that bloody bike called? H2SX. I've forgotten about it already. Yeah, but I'll be wearing that a lot. I mean, the lids I've got in rotation, really. I've got a Shoei GTR 3, which I wear kind of just every day because it's fantastic. It's really comfortable. Really well ventilated. It's got a sun visor, which I never thought I'd like. It's got a stereo in it, so that's really good. I'll be reviewing that soon. And then sticking with Shoei, I've got one of their XSPR race helmets, which I do track launches on. I've still got the old trusty RX-7 RI, which I still think is one of the best looking crash helmets money can buy. I love that helmet. And then when we're doing off-road adventure launches, I wear the RI Tour X4, which has now been superseded by the 5. And generally I wear white crash helmets for Bauer magazines that don't like my cartoon Flash Harry crash helmet. So the Alpine Stars is a lovely thing, and I'll be reviewing it soon, so keep a lookout in MCM for that. But let's crack on with some questions, shall we? So the first one is from Alistair T509. Wonder what bike you like. Thanks for the question. Really enjoyable videos, but where do people go on the roads to fully use their sports bikes? Not an original comment, I know, and I may be too old and too law-abiding. I live in the East Midlands, and for most of the decent single carriageways, speed limits have been lower to 40 or 50 over the last 20 years. Road surfaces are bloody awful. There's loads of speed cameras, and in Nottingham in particular, virtually all average speed cameras. Even Lincolnshire has joined in. I've traded my 160 bhp bike as it was just bored on the roads where I live. Yes, you can find a bit of dual carriageway or the good old A17 to buzz the locals at highly illegal speeds, but you can do that on virtually any bike and doesn't do much to enhance the image of motorcycling. Or I might just be grumpy as I've just replaced a rear tyre at 100 miles old as someone left a Stanley blade in the road. Oh dear, I'm sorry to hear that. Well, really good question. I mean, something we encounter a lot when we're road testing. Obviously, we need to kind of ride the bikes to some kind of level to be able to differentiate them with each other. And where we are in the Peterborough area, there's some really nice roads. Quite a lot aren't too infested with cameras. Not that we break the speed limit, but but what we do and the way we stay out of trouble really is we never ride at weekends. We always ride on weekdays where generally the roads are quieter and you can kind of stay out of trouble, stay out of sight. I mean, I really noticed that when I rode to Matlock over Easter. There's just tons of bikes, tons of cameras, tons of police waiting to catch the bikes. So yeah, going out, maybe take a day off in the week and ride your bike there. Now the summer's almost here and you've got those really long days, really light mornings. Maybe go out 4 or 5 in the morning for an hour for a blast where you got the roads completely to yourself. We did a feature in like 04 or something like that where we did a road test of a 999 Ducati, and we left at 4 in the morning and had like a really good 2 or 3 hour blast before anyone had woken up, and it was absolutely amazing. Although it's a bit of a chore to drag yourself out of bed at that time of the morning, but there's opportunities there. And of course, coming out of the Midlands, we've got great roads in Scotland, great roads in Wales, but we've got a whole continent on our doorstep where you've got fantastic, quiet roads that you can enjoy on a sports bike and a touring bike or any bike. So, I guess the closest to home is if you were to jump on the Channel Tunnel and head to the Black Forest in Germany, the B500, some absolutely stunning roads there. I can't really think of anything like twistier before then. Maybe down the coast of northern France down towards Le Touquet, there's some nice roads. And of course there's northern Spain. So you've got the Picos in northern Spain, you've got the Pyrenees, and it doesn't necessarily have to be a big chore to get there. You can get the ferry from Portsmouth to Santander, spend a day on the ferry, and then you can jump off the ferry and you've got some of the best roads, the best riding days you could possibly imagine on a motorcycle. So, and of course you've got southern Spain, you've got the all the way up the east coast of Spain, sort of inland a little bit. There's mountain ranges everywhere, fantastic roads. There's the Alps, obviously. So, if you're willing just to travel a little bit, which is part of the joy of owning a motorcycle, And I think one of the best things is to travel on a bike, because from when you leave your front door to when you get to where you're going, that's the holiday. So yeah, do a little bit of touring on your bike and go and find some beautiful roads. They're out there, but I'd agree that in the middle of England on a weekend, there's probably not a lot of opportunity really to enjoy your bike to the full. So I think you've got to kind of just travel a bit, and you'll find your bike in nirvana. So great question. This next one is from Lazy Satir. Neezy, I'm just going to keep asking you this, and honestly it would have been perfect, it would have fit perfectly with this sports bike debate episode, but you're in charge anyway. Yeah, thanks for sending your question in. Sorry I didn't answer it sooner. If the rumours about 2027 MotoGP technical rule changes are correct, and they go to 850cc engines, do you think Dorna would be inclined to change the WSB rules? It would seem like a bad marketing decision to allow the possibility of the WSB bikes to be lapping faster than MotoGP bikes, which that larger capacity could allow given how both classes are currently. Also, do you think this will have a knock-on effect to consumer bikes? We've already seen Yamaha discontinue the R1. Might we see the others follow suit as they develop smaller CC bikes for racing? Well, interesting question. Of course, we've kind of seen this all before, haven't we? Because MotoGP went to 800cc for a little while, but it didn't really change the landscape of road-going superbikes. They still stayed 1000cc. We didn't see any GSX-R 800s, ZX8s, R8s, CBR 800RRs. Wow, just saying, that sounds cool, doesn't it? So I don't really think anything will change in Superbike to begin with. I mean, Dorna are just selling up, aren't they, to MotoGP? So I don't know where MotoGP and World Superbike actually stand, if they'll be under the same umbrella in the future. I don't think that manufacturers are going to start building new 850cc sports bikes just for WSB, because manufacturers don't sell a lot of sports bikes and there's a huge development cost to produce them. So they may just kind of keep rolling on with the thousands that we've got now. I don't really think the lap times will change when it comes to sort of 850 MotoGP versus World Superbike. I think the 850s will probably go similar lap times to what they are now. They'll just do it in a different way. They'll carry more corner speed and less speed down the straights. Maybe, who knows. But what is interesting is that World Superbike could possibly just mimic the middleweight sports bikes that we've got. World Superbike may go down the Yamaha R9 route. Who knows, where they're kind of much less powerful. But it'd be interesting. I mean, we're at World Championship level, Superstock thousands disappeared. That only really exists in national championships now, including the UK. It's a really strong class. So who knows what's going to happen. But one thing is probably very unlikely, is that they'll make smaller capacity, full-blooded superbikes to kind of follow in the footsteps of MotoGP. If you think back for the 500 days as well, they never made a proper 500cc V4, did they? They made an RD 500 square 4 or RG 500 square 4 Suzuki, which wasn't great, compared to a race bike. It's still iconic, still a fantastic bike, but not a proper full-blooded race replica. Might have been in its day actually in 84 or 85, but not as the 500s grew into the late 80s and 90s. And then there was the RD 500 V4, which again, nothing like Wayne Rainey's 1992 YZR 500, that's for sure. But that's an interesting question. But maybe tell me what you guys think. Do you think that World Superbikes might change their capacity? What do you think about MotoGP going to 850? It'd be interesting, wouldn't it? Maybe MotoGP would just dumb everything down and make things slower. There's rumours that BMW are going to enter the fray with Top Rack, which would be absolutely fantastic. So, I think sort of the racing world, from a viewer's point of view, looks pretty healthy at the moment. I mean, this season, 2024, World Superbike and MotoGP have been pretty exciting. So, and we've got BSB to start as well. So, Great question. Thank you very much. Next one is from XL Master 4779. Hey Michael, thanks for the great videos. No problem. Thanks for your question. We all really appreciate your time and effort. I was at a track day yesterday on my SV650 and it's going great for me at novice level. In the briefing they were really recommending airbag vests. They are expensive, so perhaps a novice is not required, but those in inters or advanced, are they a must if you're a faster rider? Assume you use them, and if so, which one would you recommend? Thanks again. Well, great question. Airbags, fantastic inventions. I wear one as much as I can where it's practical. You know, sometimes I can't take them on launches because I haven't got the luggage space or weight available. And sometimes off-road I don't wear them, although you can get off-road airbag vests now. But generally day-to-day riding, I wear a Road Alpine Stars airbag vest. I think it's called is a Tech Air 5. And in my racing leathers I wear a Tech Air 10, which is kind of an all-over airbag that goes right down to your thighs now, which is good. So I think they're great. I think they're a lot more protective than just normal body armour, many times more. And once you're used to wearing them, it's hard to go back, you know, and not have that protection. But I don't think that wearing an airbag is anything to do with your riding level. I mean, if you think about it, the more experienced you are, the less likely you are to fall off, although you're going faster. So really, you know, whether you're a novice, inter or experienced rider, you know, I think an airbag is a really, really good idea, because you just never know. You never know what's going to happen. There are accidents on there, and by their very nature, you can't really plan them. So, you know, you might be riding along in your novice groups. Something might happen with your bike. Another rider might get involved with a collision, or, you know, who knows, you might run a little bit wide. But I've crashed quite a few times now in an airbag, and I've always been okay, touch wood. So, yeah, if I were you and you can afford it, I would go down the airbag route. And you know, there's many other companies that do airbags now, as well as Alpine Stars, both electronically and the ones with lanyards that inflate when you get thrown clear of the bike. So airbags definitely get the thumbs up in my book. But thanks for the question. It's a great one. This one's from Marko Butkovic. I don't know if I got that right, but thank you anyway. Hi Michael, a question. After a long time on super nakeds and super bikes, I went back to my old 2001 VFR 800, and the steering is slow now and the seat is too low. So I'm thinking about changing the rear tyre from a 180/55 to a 180/60. What's your opinion? Will the balance of the bike be ruined, or will it be better? PS, only fast road riding, no track. Thank you for your reply. Been following the channel from the beginning, and I think it's the best content for motorcyclists on the YouTubes. Well, that's very kind of you, mate. Thanks for your question. Yeah, 180/55 standard fitment on a VFR 800. You can get 180/60s. I don't really think many companies actually make that size, because they were generally only fitted to some Ducatis, Street Fighters, what else? Maybe the V2 or the 5959, I'm not sure, but quite a niche tyre. They're a little bit more balloon shaped compared to a 180/55. So yeah, they are bigger tyres, and you will theoretically get slightly quicker steering. I don't think it's night and day different if you were to put that size tyre on. And I think sort of the main problem, the reason it feels kind of so low, is because it's a touring bike, and it's not, you know, it's not a super naked or a super bike that sort of sit high up at the back and down on their nose. I think the only real way of achieving what you want to achieve is with suspension adjustments. There's probably not a lot you can do with the standard shock. You know, you could adjust preload a little bit, you get a little bit more ride height. You could perhaps drop the front a little bit with ride height by pushing the forks up through the yokes, but you're going to start interfering with ground clearance. So, you know, if you really are serious about your bike and you want to make it handle a little bit more crisply, then I'd recommend getting an aftermarket rear shock that is sprung for your weight. You know, you don't have to go down the full Öhlins or K-Tech route. You know, you can get a lot cheaper options. Maxton just do springs for standard shocks. They'll service a standard shock. There's affordable replacement shocks. MCT suspension are really good as well, so you don't have to spend an absolute fortune, but uprating the suspension on the bike will just give you so many benefits. It will make the bike feel lighter steering, it will handle more crisply, you will have more ground clearance, it will kind of keep its shape better, which is what you want. You want it higher at the back and kind of a little bit nicer steering. It will maximize the grip from your tires, it will give you better ride quality. It's just win 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 win, because standard shocks are built down to a price and they're set up in a way that's going to suit everybody that's going to ride that bike, from small to big to 1 up to 2 up and everything in between. So I wouldn't really go down that tyre route, to be honest. I would it might make a bit of difference, but you know, start with adjusting the preload, jack it up a little bit, and better suspension basically, and then you'll have a really nice bike. Because I mean, the VFR 800s are still fantastic even by today's standards. So let me know how you get on. Thanks very much for the question. This one is from Chummy Stew. Thanks for your question. Has there ever been a press road test where there's an issue with a bike that's been found and changed by the manufacturer before production? Thinking like the famous Top Gear Koenigsegg, when the Stig crashed it and was later released with a rear spoiler as advised. Well, that's a good question. I mean, I remember that. The Stig come off the track, didn't he? And his car ate a tyre through its air intakes at the front, which is quite funny, but no one got hurt, luckily. With motorbikes, I mean, with Koenigsegg, it's a very small manufacturer that could change things like that quickly. That doesn't have massive lead-in times. But when it comes to major motorcycle manufacturers, their lead-in time's huge. I mean, you know, say if a manufacturer wanted to make a new model, they would probably have to book time on the production line in the factory years ahead of schedule. So everything kind of works back from that production slot back to the drawing board. And then the things develop by test riders, and parts are made and tooling's made and all the rest of it, and it eventually goes to production. So by the time we get to ride a bike on a press launch, the manufacturer will be well on their way to producing the next model. And it's always funny that sometimes manufacturers admit that they've forgotten what this model is all about because they're so invested in the new one. And the same goes with, you know, any faults that you would find. It would basically be a little bit too late for them to do anything within reason. And also, I don't think the press really, I've never seen any evidence of the fact that what we say has any influence over what a bike is like in the future. Because, you know, there's reoccurring problems with bikes all the time that we flag up. It never gets kind of resolved. So, I mean, there's been a few instances where there's been maybe talk that certain problems in a launch of delayed production. I'm thinking of a BMW K1300S. There was supposedly some stability problems with that at the launch that was later addressed. But quite often, you know, there's a massive gap between bikes being launched and them actually going into the dealers anyway. So, you know, who knows, a manufacturer would never admit that what we said at a launch as delayed production or anything like that. And BMWs there can be quite a big lead-in time between, you know, the launch and them hitting the dealerships. I remember the 2019 S1000RR, the launch was in February time or something at a very wet Estoril. A few bikes hit dealers and press bikes pretty soon after. Then it was almost a whole year's wait before they actually arrived in dealerships for whatever reason, for whatever problems or manufacturing problems or supply problems they might have had. My team bought one of those bikes at the beginning of 2019. It didn't turn up till the end of 2019. We missed a whole season's racing. But yeah, so I don't really think that what we say has got too much influence over what the manufacturers do, unfortunately. But great question. And finally, from ES Design, thanks very much for your question. It's so interesting to me hearing you reflect on your past MCN articles. Thank you very much. I remember a lot of them. It amazes me sometimes how far superbikes of the day really were. how far ahead they were. Not much has progressed since then when you sit down and crunch the numbers, which is true. Was the MV really that rubbish? Well, MVs, thanks for your question, are strange old things. They're kind of the Lamborghinis of the motorcycle world, aren't they? They look amazing. They're kind of poster bikes. They sound amazing. They're fast. Everything about them on paper and the way they look should be brilliant. And a lot of them are very, very good. When I first started at MCM, when there's a lot more money in the coffers, we used to travel to the factory on our own to Varese to ride all the new MVs and all the special editions that came out, that many of them didn't even reach UK shores. You know, Brutalis, F4 750s, F4000s, F4 Tamburinis, and that kind of era of MVs were fantastic. They were raw, they were angry, but they did everything they were supposed to do. You know, they weren't bikes you could ride to the shops. They were a little bit awkward, a little bit stiff, a little bit highly strung, but very, very good. But then MV went through a stage, especially with the F3, where they developed their ride-by-wire system, which also appeared on the F4000, which to begin with just simply wasn't very good. There was no real nice throttle connection. There was no connection between what you were doing with your right wrist and what the tyre was doing. They had a mind of their own in a lot of ways. You know, you'd let off, sometimes there'd be a lot of engine braking, sometimes it would be freewheeling. Sometimes the throttle would be really jerky, sometimes it'd be really soft. With the F3's backward rotating crank, because they stopped the bike wheeling, they never really felt as quick and as exciting as they should do. So they did go through a big chunk of time, maybe from 2012 to maybe a few years ago, where they really hadn't sorted their ride-by-wire out, and it really spoiled the kind of the riding enjoyment of those bikes. But yeah, so there were a few that were rubbish, and that's a fact. I remember being on a thousands test in Sicily with an MV, and Neil Hodgson was there, and he jumped off the MV and said it's the worst bike he'd ever ridden. So, but they have improved, and now when we ride MVs, I'm always pleasantly surprised. It doesn't happen that often, and now MV are owned mostly by KTM, so I'm sure the MV landscape will change at some point and the bikes will evolve in a different direction. But yeah, now they kind of work properly, which is the biggest compliment you can give them now, really. The SCS clutch, that Recluse clutch that some of them have got, are really good. They sound great. They feel not the best in the world, but they work well. And they've still got all that drama from the way it looks to the way it rides. They handle really well. You know, in that kind of bad period, we used to have MV test bikes that fueled really badly, that leaked oil. Suspension was all over the place. Stickers were all put on wonky. And I remember having dinner one night, and somebody high up at MV Augusta rang me up at home while I was watching Dexter, the serial killer series, and absolutely tore a strip off me for criticising their bikes. But, you know, I said, these are the problems, these are facts, it's not just my opinion, it was bad. But eventually we kissed and made up after that. But, you know, at least they care. I prefer that. A lot of manufacturers, you criticise their bikes and it's radio silence, which is sad, really, because that really does show that they don't really pay any attention to what you think. Not that we're important, but surely it's good to sort of garner everyone's opinions and use that to move forward, whether they're kind of right or wrong. But there you go. So thanks very much for watching. If you've got this far, well done. Keep sending those comments and questions in. I really enjoy reading them, and stay tuned for more videos like this coming very soon.